Welcome to a special edition of the DAZN Boxing Show meets the DAZN MMA Show. I'm Chris Mannix, alongside three people far more accomplished than me. Sergio Mora, the former junior middleweight champion, and from the MMA side of things, we have former PFL light heavyweight champion Sean O'Connell and UFC legend Dan the Outlaw Hardy. Fellas, we are here to talk about the kind of fight that Sergio hates, but desperately wants to be a part of. That's right, a crossover fight in boxing this weekend. Tyson Fury, the lineal heavyweight champion of the world, against Francis Ngannou, the former UFC heavyweight champion, one of the baddest men in all of combat sports. That fight will take place Saturday in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So, Sergio, we'll let you weigh in on this one first, because I know you love these kind of fights. Tyson Fury is a massive favorite, and for pretty good reason. What will it take in your mind for Francis Ngannou to pull off an upset?
I would think for Francis Ngannou to pull off an upset, Tyson Fury would have to be sick, injured, and Ngannou would have to land the perfect shot, and Tyson Fury would have to slip on a banana peel. All those things at once, and then Ngannou has a chance. Other than that, there is absolutely no way Tyson Fury loses against a 37, 38-year-old MMA fighter who doesn't have spring on his bounce, on his toes, doesn't have upper body movement, doesn't have punching ability as far as a boxer goes. He doesn't know how to miss. So when he misses, he's gonna fall off balance, get countered, that's it. Can't take a punch. All of the above. Now, if he lands one big shot, maybe things will go a different way, and that's what you're gonna pay for? What if? I don't play what if, Mannix. I'm a professional former champion. There's no what ifs in my calculation.
Sean, do you have that an equally sunny, optimistic viewpoint of Ngannou's chances?
Probably slightly more optimistic than that. Look, that's how a boxer should view this fight, right? That's how a hardcore boxing fan should view this fight. This is the reason why people want to see the fight. Boxing world, everyone's saying, all right, I'm going to reluctantly fork over the dough necessary to watch this thing so that once again, a true heavyweight, in this case, boxer, a true professional boxer, like an actual boxer, can put to rest all this debate about who the baddest man on the planet is. And all the MMA fans are banking on the what if. They're buying the pay-per-view because they want to know what it looks like if Francis Ngannou does land one or two clean shots. Because the belief out there, at least among the MMA fans in the combat sports world, is that even Deontay Wilder doesn't hit as hard as Francis Ngannou does. And if Francis can land, we've seen it against some of the toughest dudes on the planet. We've seen when he lands clean, it's not about waking up, standing up from an 8 count. They don't have the opportunity. They're unconscious and they're headed to the hospital. That's what MMA fans want to see. And that's what boxing fans are so sure will not happen. But they're going to pay-per-view. They're going to buy it just to make sure.
Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm realistic. I know that his chances are incredibly slim, but it is the puncher's chance. I mean, this is ultimately why boxing prospects fight journeymen, because you know what you're getting. You know what you're working with, right? This is a completely unknown commodity for Tyson. Like, he doesn't know the angles that Ngannou is going to come at. Sparring with amateurs, sparring with novices is always a lot more difficult because they move in weird patterns and they do things that don't make a lot of sense. And I would imagine that Ngannou is going to be doing all of those things, not intentionally, because, that would make him predictable. It's the unintentional stuff that's going to land. And what's always landed against the highest level strikers in MMA. I mean, you look at Rosenstrike and Overeem, guys that have had 50, 60 kickboxing, MMA, Muay Thai fights, and they're getting taken out with one punch from a guy that's, got no boxing skills from what everyone's saying. It's the puncher's chance we're watching for, isn't it? And I think that, of all the people to put your money on, if you want that kind of ride, Ngannou's the guy.
Yeah, look, this just doesn't work out for MMA fighters coming into the boxing world. They almost never win, and they're rarely competitive, whether it's Conor McGregor against Floyd Mayweather at the highest of level, or that goofy Dylan Dennis Logan Paul fight at the lowest of levels. It's just they're combat sports, but they're very different sports, right? I take the position more closely aligned with Sergio. I think there's a better chance of me getting hit by a meteor watching Ngannou versus Fury than Ngannou actually winning this fight. Because you talk about the punching power, and I agree with you guys, it's there, but there's a phrase Ngannou has been using a lot over the last couple of months. That's the delivery system. He's been working on the delivery system to get that punch to Tyson Fury. Against Deontay Wilder, Wilder had the delivery system, right? He had that hair trigger right hand that not only had power behind it, but also was delivered with remarkable speed. Granted, I've just seen limited footage of Ngannou boxing, but it's methodical. You know, what I've seen, how his punches ultimately get there. It just doesn't seem like he has anywhere near the kind of speed where Tyson Fury's not going to see these right hands coming, or not going to see any of these power punches coming. I think Tyson, who's already, the best heavyweight, quote, boxer in the sport right now, one of the top 10 pound for pound fighters, I think, in the game. I just don't think he's going to be remotely threatened, because he's going to see a lot of these punches coming. And Sean, I'll ask you this. We see Mike Tyson as a part of Team Ngannou, and that certainly helped build the promotion. You've got Mike Tyson, one of the greatest of all time, working with Francis Ngannou, a guy that Tyson Fury looked up to, who was named after. So there's promotional value to it. Is there boxing value in your mind to having Mike Tyson part of Team Ngannou?
I think yes, because what you see from Mike Tyson, who was almost always the shorter fighter, right? And almost always the guy who needed to get in to that sort of frustrating range for the taller, longer arm fighters, and was able to, unleash short, sharp punches from inside with speed, right? And that speed is the big question. And also that metronome movement that kept him out of a lot of trouble as he made those entries. Like, Francis has not had that in his game previously. He's not needed to have that in his game in the mixed martial arts world. If he's going to have any chance of getting close to Tyson Fury, close enough to land that puncher's chance power that we're talking about, he needs to add that to his delivery system, right? He needs to be able to get past the jab and get past the boxing of Tyson Fury. And, Mike Tyson saw some potential here and said, you've got that crazy power that I was known for, that change your life type explosiveness in both hands. Let's see if we can get you to a spot where you can actually deliver that to a guy's chin. So yes, there's boxing value to him being there, probably more promotional value, because I don't know if you can really, in 6 or 8 or even 12 months time, I don't know how much of that inborn Mike Tyson, like I did it since I was 5 years old, you can actually adopt in your late 30s. But yes, there's boxing value to it.
Sergio, you and I talk a lot about the value of a boxing trainer. And, it's true. Tyson and Ngannou are both blessed with fight-changing power, but they couldn't be more diametrically different, both in terms of their stature and how they fight. How do you see Tyson's addition to the team?
Don't use words like diametrically with me, one. And
Sorry,
two,
I
it's not meteor.
Right,
if it enters the Earth's atmosphere, it's meteorite. Yes, and you're right. It takes a meteorite to hit one of these guys to finally lose this fight. No, you can't compare Mike Tyson's power to Ngannou's power. Mike Tyson's power came with technique, with explosive footwork, with angles. Mike Tyson would square up and get away with it because he was so explosive and get on an angle. That takes footwork. Ngannou doesn't have footwork. Ngannou doesn't have speed. Ngannou has brute strength and power. And he does it with what? Those 4 5-ounce gloves. He's not going to do it with 10-ounce gloves. It's going to be totally different. Another thing. Sorry guys, MMA fighters aren't accustomed to getting hit in the chin. Okay? They're accustomed to getting hit, and then they can hold on and break arms and wrestle and choke. All that. When a boxer gets hit in the chin, he can't do that. He can clinch for a little bit, then he's going to get broken up, clipped again, then he goes down. That's the reason a lot of mixed martial artists, they rely on, getting you on the floor once you're hurt. You're not going to have that ability to do that as a professional fighter. Once Ngannou gets hurt, like a lot of these MMA fighters get hit, they turn their back, they don't know how to react, they turn to the side, and then that's when it's over, because the accumulation of speed and power comes in, and they can't do what they normally do. They can't wrestle, they can't attack, they can't choke, they can't break an arm. They can't do none of that. They could just cover up, and that's when a boxer takes control. Another thing, MMA fighters, and I hate to say this in front of you guys because you guys are awesome what you do. You'll kick my ass, okay? I'm talking to you guys right now, Sean, Dad. You'll kick my ass in a real street fight. But in a boxing ring, you're not going to be allowed to do all that. And that's why I have the upper hand. Even if you do land one punch, I can take a punch better than you. So I'm going to have the upper hand on the chin. I'm going to have the upper hand on the legs, on the speed, all of the above. Power is the last thing on the list. What good is power if you're not going to get near landing that power? Power doesn't matter. It does not matter in this equation. So if you're going to sell power to the MMA fighters and MMA fans and everyone buying this, great marketing tool. But Tyson Fury's been hit by a bigger puncher. And I don't know who said it, you, Sean or Dan, but no, Ngannou does not punch harder than Deontay Wilder. I'll repeat, there is no way Ngannou punches harder than the Bronze Bomber. That's one of the hardest puncher in history. No, he doesn't.
The hardest
Tyson
puncher
Fury
in
ate that
history,
up.
scientifically, the hardest puncher ever measured in history was thrown by Francis Ngannou. Now, you could probably put Deontay Wilder on that same machine and we'll see what happens. But from what we know, what was actually been presented to us is we've never measured a harder strike than Francis Ngannou was thrown.
What is this? Whoa. What is this, Sean? Is this Rocky IV? Where Drago's punching a machine? Come on, man. We're not punching machines. We're not a robot here.
You're right.
We're humans, man.
You're right, but you're making a claim that Francis does not punch harder than Deontay Wilder. And the only thing that we can point to is your opinion on that, or my opinion on that, or we can look at a number that actually exists. And the number that actually exists says that Francis Ngannou has the hardest strike ever measured on that machine. And that's fine. Like Deontay can go, Tyson can go. And if those guys punch harder, I will happily concede that. But I'm not going to let you sit here and claim that Deontay punches harder just because you're the boxer and I'm the MMA guy.
Dan, you want to weigh in?
Allow me to retort.
Oh,
okay, Dan.
Look, I'm always interested to hear the boxer's side in these equations, right? I was heavily involved in the Maymack fight, and that was a phenomenon in itself, and it kind of was one of the things that started this whole process that we're talking about now. Like, of course, in a boxing ring, an MMA fighter is going to be outskilled by a professional boxer, especially when you're taking someone even as qualified in mixed martial arts as Francis Ngannou, and you put him in there with Tyson Fury. But ultimately, there's an unpredictability about this fight that we don't get in a lot of boxing matches, and that's ultimately why a lot of people tune into MMA, because of the unpredictability in it. Like, MMA fans are there for the unpredictability. We're there to be surprised, right? And we're tuning in because this is a surprise, but this is also not a defeat for the MMA world. I mean, Ngannou's making more money here, stepping into his pro boxing debut than he's ever made in his entire mixed martial arts career. Like that's a win for mixed martial arts, because he's climbed himself up to the top of one sport and then stepped straight over into the top of the other. And what I hear constantly is people in the boxing world not giving him credit for working his way into this position, but also, like, there's an element of annoyance that he's making so much money after not doing all of the rounds that the other boxers have done. It's the same reason why Jake Paul's annoying everybody, because he's cashing in at the top of the sport without doing all of the foundational work that everybody else is. But ultimately, maybe something can be learned. I mean, whenever boxers cross over to mixed martial arts, and it hardly ever happens because we all know what would happen, but like, we're always open to the boxer having a chance. I was open to James Toney knocking Randy Couture out, but we knew most likely it wasn't going to happen. But I was open to the idea, just like I'm open to the idea that Francis Ngannou could potentially land something that is unorthodox enough to catch him. Like, we talk about Deontay Wilder. Yeah, I know that guy can punch. I mean, when he put on one of the PFL gloves the other week, you could see his mouth watering punching somebody with that glove on. But the reality is he has basic fundamental boxing skills, which can be predictable. And even if Fury was caught with those punches, the likelihood of him seeing them coming and being able to ride some of those shots a little bit probably saved him from some of that power. Ultimately, the shot that he's going to get caught with, if he loses this fight against Ngannou, and of course it's a massive if, but it won't be a punch that he sees coming, and it won't be a punch that someone's teaching on Monday morning in a boxing gym, because it's going to come from the canvas and it's going to put his head into the rafters.
Oh, I tell you, Dan, I've still got PTSD from watching that James Toney Randy Couture fight. That was the first UFC fight I ever went to in Boston, and that was hard to watch. That 45 seconds that lasted, maybe a minute 10, I don't know what it was, but that was painful to watch. And it certainly stands to be true, 100% true, that boxers cannot go into the cage and hope to be successful either. But Sergio, nobody knows distraction like you either. I mean, you lost your title because you spent 2 months at Caesar's Palace, having a good time. Tyson Fury, he has had a lot going on in his life over the last couple of months. He had a child, and he already has his next fight booked. I mean, the Alexander Usyk fight could take place as early as December 23rd. Now, I don't think it happens on that date, but that's one of the dates being floated. Is the possibility of Fury being either distracted or overlooking Ngannou something to be aware of?
Look at all the things we have to pile on top of this to make it a competitive fight. You mentioned a meteor. I mentioned a banana peel. Now you're talking about distractions and
distractions are different. Distractions
Every
matter.
fighter goes
Distractions
through a distraction. We're human, man. We're prepared for that. We know how to compartmentalize our lives and then our professional lives. Every fighter has issues. Every fighter has kids and problems with their lives, getting sickness, injury. You have to deal with it. Tyson Fury's dealt with it his entire life. I mean, look at what he's conquered. He's come back from the darkness of alcoholism, of drug abuse, or whatever, everything that he came back from, all that weight that he had to lose. We know what this man's made of. Solid granite and rock, man, and he has mental strength. If you're able to come back from that, from obscurity, from depression, from drugs, from alcoholism, and come back and win the title again from the baddest man on the planet, one of the heaviest punchers in the world, that means you have the goods, not only as in your ability, in your soul, but in your mind and in your game plan. Distractions aren't going to bother this man, especially when you're dealing with a guy that is not a boxer. He is not a boxer. Francis Ngannou, God bless him. I am so happy for him and his story, and finally going to make the money that he's been longing for in a boxing ring. He deserves it. Great for this cartoon of a fight, but he does not stand a chance. Ngannou stands no chance.
Go ahead, Sean. You look like you want to say something there.
No, look, I just like the little Ngannou throwing it out there. Look, this is the hardest fight for Francis Ngannou to take in any place, right? If he had fought John Jones in the UFC, he is more likely to win that fight. That's an easier fight for him. And I'm talking about probably the greatest mixed martial artist of all time. He has a better chance to fight of beating John Jones than he does of beating Tyson Fury. So for him stepping up to this challenge, obviously the odds are insurmountably stacked against him, but all of us are very familiar with Francis's story. And none of us would have made it out of what he made it to the position that he's in. Like, very few people on planet Earth would have got to this point. So that mentality can be a danger for him, saying, I've already won, I've already made it because I'm here. But all of these comments from everyone in the boxing world that this isn't a real fight and booking your next fight, it tells us that Tyson Fury, I'm not worried about distractions. I'm worried about Tyson Fury going in there and not thinking that this man is dangerous to him at all. If I'm a boxing fan, if I'm on the boxing side of this equation and I'm saying, oh, this isn't a real fight, this is a clown show, this is a guy that you don't have to take seriously, I'm just going to get out of here healthy so that I can go take on Usyk. Like, Francis Ngannou will make you pay for that. So my hope for Tyson Fury is that he's taking this seriously. Because if he does, then there's not really any comparison between the two skills here. There's not any comparison between the level of experience in the boxing ring. Obviously, he's a massive favorite for a reason. But if he's stepping over Francis Ngannou and saying, I'll worry about that on the day and not until then, Francis can make him pay for that.
Dan, on the subject of taking this fight seriously, Francis Ngannou is in a no-lose situation. He's not expected to win. He's going to make a pile of cash one way or the other, and he has got a PFL deal waiting for him when this fight is over. How motivated do you think he's going to be going into this fight?
Oh, I mean, he's single-minded. I mean, you know, he always dreamed of being a boxer. He walked into a mixed martial arts gym with the intention of becoming a boxer. I think he's kind of realizing his dreams here in a lot of different ways all at once, not only both financially as well as like the event. I mean, this is going to be spectacular, right? Of course, it's being headlined by a massive combat sports occasion, even if you don't want to call it a fight. But the whole thing is going to be incredible. And as you mentioned yourself, you know, the first time you went to a UFC event was when James Toney fought. We kept a few boxing fans at that point, right? James Toney brought boxing fans to mixed martial arts. We're bringing mixed martial arts fans into boxing. Same with Jake Paul. He's bringing fans that are not watching boxing at all right now into boxing. Like, we've all got to be thankful for this exposure. Like, we're all talking about it. We're being employed by these kind of situations. So, like, I just can't overlook this occasion and how special this feels. Like, everyone's going to carry on about their days, you know, after this, and Tyson will go on and potentially, you know, fight Usyk a few weeks later, and Ngannou will move on to the PFL, etc. But this is happening, and both these guys are going to make a bunch of cash, and a lot of people are going to enjoy this, right? I mean, I'm just as a combat sports fan, I'm a bit giddy that this day has arrived and these things are happening, and these guys can make this kind of money. Like, I mean, I was fighting for $100 here and there back in my day. The fact that these guys are cashing in is good for everybody in combat sports.
Sean, let me ask you about the conditioning factor in all this. I mean, Tyson Fury went the distance and won against Vladimir Klitschko. He went the distance in a draw against Deontay Wilder. He is comfortable going, 10, 12 rounds if he has to. Francis Ngannou has fought in a different format for his entire career. He's fought those 5 rounds, a little bit lengthier in terms of length of rounds, but a lot of his fights have ended first round, second round, third round. How big a factor do you think that's going to be? Is this the kind of fight that Ngannou has to go out and kind of go for broke early on because the later rounds could be more problematic?
Yes, if Francis doesn't land that punch that we're all of us in the MMA world are hoping he lands in the first 3 rounds, he's not going to land it. This man, I mean, you can look at the way that he's built and realize he's not an endurance athlete, right? This man is a sprinter, and he needs to have that explosive power, not just in boxing but in MMA if he's going to really, put his best skills on display. I don't care how optimistic you want to be as an MMA fan about his punching power. If this goes into the late rounds, we know that Tyson Fury, because we've seen it before, we know that Tyson Fury is still going to be moving properly. He's still going to have his hands up defensively. His footwork is still going to be sharp. And we can go back and see the same thing from Francis in the later rounds of mixed martial arts fights and know that that is not necessarily the case. So conditioning is absolutely going to be a factor here. I'm sure he's changed things up because he wanted to make himself, more formidable into the late boxing rounds here. But it's an old dog trying to learn new tricks. So those early rounds are the only rounds that are really promising for Francis.
Sergio, that being said, how careful does Tyson Fury need to be in those early rounds?
If this fight was 3 minutes with smaller gloves, then yeah, very careful, but it's not. It's not. And you mentioned conditioning. That's another factor that's going to go against Ngannou because he's not accustomed to bouncing on his feet, having to miss. That's the main thing here, guys. If Ngannou was hitting a heavy bag, he can go 10 rounds, he can go 8 rounds, he can go 6 rounds, whatever. But he's not hitting a heavy bag. He's hitting a moving target that's not going to stand in front of him. Tyson Fury has maybe one of the best upper body movement in boxing. It's hard to track him down with one punch. And Ngannou doesn't have a combination type puncher. He wings punches from all over the place. Yeah, he's unorthodox. He can maybe, catch him in the side of the head while he's, moving his upper body. Maybe. Everything's maybe here. What if? Maybe. Possibility. It's not going to happen. The best chance here for Ngannou is, yes, the first 3 minutes of the fight, just attack him. But he's going to be vulnerable too. You act like Tyson Fury can't counter. You act like Tyson Fury can't, pull back and come back with something with leverage. And being as aggressive and as big and as strong as Ngannou is, it's not going to take a big punch. It's going to take a precise punch. Boom, down. And then he's not going to know how to react. He's not going to know how to survive. This fight could easily be over in 3 minutes. But knowing Tyson Fury and what kind of a showman he is, he's going to want to soak it up. Just like the way Floyd Mayweather, soaked it up with Conor McGregor. He could have easily went out there under 3 rounds and stopped them. But no, he wanted to give the fans and the paying public and the 4.1 million people that bought the pay-per-view, and he laughed all the way to the bank. That's exactly what Tyson Fury is going to do. He has the ability, he has the showmanship, and he's a heavyweight champion of the world, man. You're not going to do nothing to him. It's going to be a one-sided, not only beatdown, but a show. So enjoy it. A one-sided show.
Dan, if the spectrum is Peter McNeely, Mike Tyson here, Guillermo Rigondeaux fights there to describe over-aggressive and horribly boring. Like, where does Ngannou need to fall on that? Like, just how crazy, or does he need to get crazy in those early rounds, try to land something big?
Honestly, I don't think he should. I think he needs to start patient because, he does have to be concerned about his conditioning. Sean's right. He can't work hard for rounds after rounds. What I will say, I mean, going from 5-round fights where you are wrestling and grappling and the fight goes constantly, I mean, it very rarely gets separated and you can't tie up to rest in MMA a lot of the time. They're still hustling that clinch. Like going from 5 rounds to 3 for 3-minute rounds is, they feel very, very short by comparison. I don't know what it is about that additional 2 minutes, but it feels like a lifetime. So at the end of every 3 minutes, assuming he gets past a round, he goes back to his stool and he sits down and he gets a breath and he gets to regroup for 60 seconds. So he gets several starts in this boxing match that he doesn't get in mixed martial arts. An MMA fight, if it's a 3-round fight, he gets 3 starts on his feet, and then he could potentially be on the floor grappling or clinched or whatever. He's going to get several starts in this fight. So the longer it goes, the better his chances are. And I think, he's not going to beat Tyson with volume, right? He's not going to outpunch him and outwork him. It's going to be the single big shots that make the big difference in the round. So that's what I would be focusing on primarily. I mean, work my way inside, as Sean said, get around that jab best I can, work to the body. And as you stated, Tyson Fury's got such good upper body movement. The danger is, more than anything, Ngannou swinging knockout punches and completely missing and throwing himself off balance and exhausting him. Because if he does throw himself off balance, you know full well that Tyson Fury is going to be leaning on him and hanging on him and waiting for the referee to step in. It's going to be an exhausting process all the way through for Ngannou. There is no doubt about that. But the more aggressive he is, the more vulnerable I feel like he's going to be as well. He's going to be easier to read, and he's going to gas himself out much quicker, which means his defense is going to slip much quicker.
The leaning that you bring up is something Fury does better than any heavyweight I've ever seen, where he uses every inch of that 6'6", 6'7", whatever actual height he is, frame, and just leans on his opponents and just drains them of energy. Deontay Wilder had no legs in the second and third fight, in part because every time they clinched, Fury was leaning on him. He's going to do the exact same thing against Ngannou. Sean, Dan mentioned this earlier. These crossover events are not negatives for the UFC guys or the MMA guys that go into it. Make a pile of money. They can increase their visibility. But what would a win mean, do you think? Like, if Francis Ngannou can pull off an upset over Tyson Fury, what would that mean?
Well, he gets to call himself legitimately the baddest man on the planet, right? Because beat all the heavyweights in MMA that stepped in with him, and then he beats the best boxer, the best heavyweight boxer of this generation. He legitimately gets to call himself that. And MMA fighters say that about themselves. Boxers say that about themselves. And we never really know who would win in an actual fight. And this is a boxing match, not a real fight, but this is a boxing match. So if he can somehow pull this off, just the bragging rights that come with that and whatever kind of contract leverage and endorsements, and I can't even imagine the possibilities that opens up for somebody like Francis Ngannou, because now you're the king of 2 sports, right? It's like if LeBron James decided that he wanted to be the best pitcher in the Major League Baseball and somehow decided to do it, or decided that he was going to be the best wide receiver in the NFL and somehow was able to do it. Like, we've never, ever seen, to my knowledge, in the world of combat sports or anywhere else, somebody who's the best in 2 different sports beats the very best in 2 different sports. So it'd be history made, truly unprecedented. But look, we know that this is highly unlikely. It's already a win that Francis has been able to do this. And it's a win for boxing also, right? Because all this conversation about that sport losing interest and all the conversation about that sport, needing fights like this, it's more legitimate when it's a Francis Ngannou combat sports world champion and not some YouTuber who's taken over and getting more views than your worldwide stars in boxing. So it's a win for everybody.
Sergio, on the flip side of that, what would a loss mean for Tyson Fury?
It'll be devastating, because then we're not going to get an undisputed champion. We're not going to get, what we should get as boxing fans. Tyson Fury is, incredible at what he does inside and outside the ring. He has a mass following. He's a gypsy king, man. I mean, all eyes are on him. He knows how to sell a fight, sell an event. But if he loses to a non-boxer in a boxing ring, especially if he gets knocked out, yeah, it's devastating, because then the shine of the baddest man on the boxing planet just got beat by an MMA fighter, and it's not going to be a good look, but it's not going to happen. You could add getting struck by lightning on this. Right, another analogy of what if. It's not going to happen, man. What am I doing here? What am I doing here on the DAZN Boxing Show, talking to a writer and a publicist, a boxing publicist in Chris Mannix, and 2 prize fighters turned politicians in Sean and Dan? What are we doing here? What are we doing here, fellas? We know what it is. It's apples and oranges. And when it comes to apples and oranges, boxing and MMA, they're 2 completely different arts, and they should be 2 completely arts. If you want to bring them together and say, oh, what if, and make it popular for business and raising revenue and bringing new fans, great. But never say that an MMA fighter can beat a professional boxer, let alone a champion inside a boxing ring. It's never.
Why does boxing need this then? Why does boxing need this fight right now then?
Boxing doesn't need
Sean,
this fight.
I would disagree with you in the sense that I don't think boxing does need it. Frankly, I think Tyson Fury is doing a nice job saying this will be great for boxing, lifting up boxing, but this does nothing for boxing. This is a way for Tyson Fury to line his pockets. I would imagine most boxing fans are not going to be buying this. Look, it's $80 in the U.S., which is insane. I mean, they already got the bag from Saudi Arabia. Like, this is like winning the lottery and then stealing the pennies from the jar after you're on your way out the door. It's crazy that they are trying to, take $80 off a buying public for an afternoon fight in the U.S. I just think this is for Tyson Fury. The boxing fan, what they get is a signed contract for Fury and Alexander Usyk. That's what they get to look forward to. I'm 100% sure that Usyk will be in Saudi Arabia. He'll be there sitting ringside waiting to engage with Tyson Fury. Other heavyweight boxers are going to be there as well. This is just kind of an event for Tyson Fury to make a boatload of money. I just don't think it does anything for boxing. So
Crickets. Yeah, I think we all get.
Bravo,
Chris Mannix. Let's end it on that note.
I'm not gonna disagree with you. What I will say is that I think the boxing fan base will swell a little bit from people that aren't currently watching boxing right now, because they're gonna like the adrenaline rush, they're gonna like the excitement around this event, and it's gonna be a spectacle, right? I mean, I don't know what to expect. I keep hearing rumors about the venue and what's gonna happen, and it's gonna be like nothing we've ever seen before. And I'm glad that it's revolving around combat sports generally, because like back in my day, I was either going to be a taekwondo instructor or nothing, because there were no other options for us. Now people are making millions and millions of dollars doing what I've always loved as a kid. Like, go and get that money, right? I can't be down on it. I remember watching Muhammad Ali take on Antonio Inoki back in, what was that, the 60s? Like, that was boxing against pro wrestling, and I'm sure that people were trashing that at the time as well, but hey, I'm glad that Muhammad Ali took that challenge on and tried something different. And, that's ultimately what we're getting here. We're getting something new that we've not seen before. And I'm excited for it. Of course, Tyson Fury is a formidable test for anybody, even if a highly skilled boxer. But people are talking about combat sports, and for everybody involved in combat sports, that has to be a positive. I just can't see negatives. These guys are making cash. And that kind of money doesn't move around in mixed martial arts, And the other thing as well is...
Dan, hold up. You went from spectacle to combat sports. Those are two totally different words there. Combat sports we respect because we dedicate our lives, all of us dedicated our lives to it in our craft, being the best at our craft. And a spectacle is more of a circus and entertainment. Now we're combining the two, and that's where the issue lies for fighters like us that have bled and given our life to it, to guys with YouTube, making a boatload of money. Yeah, that's great for them. They're marketing this the right way. But how about people like us? And I agree with you. My first professional fight, I made $400. It's not fair for guys like us. And we're too old to start a YouTube channel, man. So am I hating on these guys making a boatload of money? No. Am I happy for Ngannou for finally making the millions he deserved all his career? No. But if you expect me to shell out $80 for a fight where I know this man stands no chance in a boxing ring, it's not going to happen. And you're not going to convince me that he's going to slip on a banana peel, get sick, injured, and get struck by a bolt of lightning. I'm not paying $80 for that.
Can I ask a question? Can I throw something in here? If it was going the other way, Sergio, if it was going the other way, right? And for some reason, Tyson Fury, just for his own edification and to see that he was really the baddest man on the planet, he said, I want to compete in mixed martial arts. Would it be worth $80 to you?
That's a hell of a point, Sean. See, I'm not a hater. I am not a hater. I'll admit it when I'm wrong. That's intriguing. That is intriguing, right? Because if it's in an octagon, yeah, I'll give Tyson Fury a chance with those, 4 or 5 ounce gloves to land a punch while they're standing up. But then once it goes down, yeah, well, $80 out the window.
Sean, isn't part of the problem? Isn't part of the problem with that comparison that we've just seen so much evidence over the last 3 or 4 years that mixed martial art is getting into boxing, it just goes badly. Like they wind up in the ring, it doesn't go well for them. I think that's part of it, where if Fury decided to go into the octagon, then he would not, it would be the kind of thing we haven't seen, right? Really not since James Toney. And that would be on a much higher level because Fury's a much bigger name than James Toney. We've seen big name MMA fighters dating back to Conor McGregor and even before it, but Conor McGregor being the greatest example, get into the ring and struggle mightily. That's why I think Fury would probably have a lot more appeal in a cage, because we just haven't seen that before. And it's sort of a new thing. With MMA fighters, it's like we've seen it. We know how this story ends. We know how it ends. And we're not really sure how much more we need to see it in that.
We've seen it once, right? We've seen one time where an MMA champion took on a legitimate world champion boxer in a fight where both of them were, closer to being real, like actually in camps and training. Anderson Silva versus Jake Paul, or Tyron Woodley versus Jake Paul, or any of that's not the same thing. Those are those spectacle fights that we're talking about. One time we have seen a true crossover event where you had Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, and it was humongous, right? It was a major talking point. Every sports network threw all their number one talents out there, even people who knew nothing about combat sports, right? Everyone knew what appointment viewing that was. And it's only happened one time, and those guys weren't heavyweights. And the heavyweights always bring the show more than any other weight class does. So we've actually only seen this really, truly one time where guys are in the right age category to be facing one another. And even that was a stretch with McGregor versus Mayweather. So this is not a repeat of anything we've seen necessarily. This is something that's a twist on those crossover fights. And the fact that it's heavyweights and the fact that it's a dude with this kind of punching power is why it's intriguing. And I wouldn't pay $180 to see a world champion boxer come over and do this in mixed martial arts. And the only reason they don't is because they don't have to make the money, right? No one is prideful enough, even in the boxing world, to say, you know what, I really think I'm the baddest man on the planet in any situation, even in a fight where I might be lacking some of the skills. MMA fighters are willing to do this because they can make more money, right? No boxer will do this except James Toney, I guess, needed the paycheck.
And just to add to that as well, it's cutting off one portion of a very, very deep skill set and focusing on that thing in particular. Like, how far down the heavyweight rankings would you have to go before Francis Ngannou would be considered competitive? I would say you wouldn't have to go that far down the heavyweight rankings, but I could give you 50 heavyweights right now that would beat Tyson and Fury in under 2 minutes in an MMA fight, because there is so much more he would have to learn for mixed martial arts. He would be far, far further out of his depth. Like, at least in this fight, if ever they get tied up, they're going to get separated back, and that is going to suit Ngannou because he's a puncher. He doesn't want to be grappling. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I'm fighting Ngannou, I'm going to tie him up and wrestle with him to try and tire him out. Like that, I don't know. I just think there's a lot of intangibles that we're not considering here, and I feel like the power that Ngannou brings to the table is one of those. Is of course the major talking point here, but. This is a side quest for Ngannou. Yeah, he's making more money at this, but he's also shelving what 3/4 of his game, probably more than that, to focus on this. Like, he knows he's not getting into this fight as one of the favorites. He knows he's not getting into this fight even with a narrow chance of winning, but he's still doing it. He's still taking it on. You know what I mean? Like, we talk about where Tyson Fury's come from in his life, but like going from the mines of Cameroon to finding yourself in an MMA gym in Paris to then becoming the heavyweight MMA champion of the world and then crossing over to boxing, like, I just can't count this guy out anymore. And even if he does lose, it just doesn't matter because he's already created this pathway for other people to step in.
I do think, and you're right about Fury not being in UFC or PFL, Bellator heavyweight rankings. I think you'd have to go if Ngannou entered the boxing heavyweight rankings, he'd be really far down. Like, I can think of 20 now that would be ahead of him, and I haven't even seen him fight in a boxing match. There's a reason he's going straight into Tyson Fury, because the risk of fighting like Derek Chisora is way too high, for a fight like this. He loses that fight, and all of a sudden he's in a world of trouble. All right, so let's put a button on all this. Sean, we'll start with you. How does this fight end? What's your official prediction?
I think this fight ends with Tyson Fury winning probably by knockout or TKO in the 6th or 7th round, and people will have gotten their money's worth. I think that post-fight, he's going to say, I underestimated Francis Ngannou. He hit me a couple times with stuff that I didn't see coming, and it was incredibly dangerous for me, and I probably should have taken this a little bit more seriously. and go buy the Usyk fight. I mean, look, I love the Francis Ngannou story, but I'm a realist enough to know what he is up against here. I think that he will come out of this fight with a little bit more respect on his name from the average boxing fan than he goes in. And then we get him back in the world of mixed martial arts where he gets to do his thing for real. And I hope sincerely that Tyson Fury or somebody else who's a legitimate world champion boxer, while they're close to their prime, says, you know what? I want to see what it's like to be in one of these fights, one of these real fights. I want to see what that's like. And I hope we get the crossover event the other way.
Yeah, and look, I think PFL makes it interesting with their pay-per-view division. I mean, I think that could make it a little more feasible if a boxer does want to take on that challenge. Dan, official prediction to you.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with Sean. I think he summed it up pretty well. I think we're probably going to get 3 good rounds of theater and fun, and I think Ngannou is going to be swinging for the fences at times and trying to take his head off, and I think he might get close with a couple, but I do think he's going to punch himself out. I think he's going to get tied up and worn out, and the punch that I'm watching out for is that rear uppercut from Tyson Fury, because I can see Ngannou putting his face on the end of it, especially if he starts to get tired and a bit labored in his movement. Of course, I'm expecting Tyson Fury to win, but I'm on board for the story and for the occasion. And even if we did some kind of hybrid rules where Tyson stepped over into the smart cage with the small gloves and they were allowed to clinch and fight in the clinch, dirty box as we call it in MMA, like I still think that'd be a really, really interesting occasion that I'd want to tune in for. But I think Fury's probably going to do it in the 4th round, and I think it's going to be a real show up to that point.
Sergio, I'm going to put you down for Ngannou by split decision. That sound about right?
Well, look, this is for another episode, but I can debate Sean here for about an hour. Smart man, good fighter, good person to put up great points. But what constitutes a real fight? That's another subject. This is a boxing event. You guys do your grappling. If we meet in the middle, it's 2 different sports. But anyway, I think this fight goes over 3 rounds because of Tyson Fury. He allows it. He's a showman. He's going to jab. He's going to play with them. He's going to get on his feet. He's going to stay off the ropes. He's going to grapple. He's going to go back. He's going to give the fans what they paid for, their money's worth. But then once it passes 3-4 rounds and he sees Ngannou getting tired and breathing and not punching as much, Tyson Fury, the showman, is going to stop the show and stop this man under 5 rounds.
See, we need to do this again. We need to do this again. I need that debate. What is a fight? Because honestly,
what is a real fight? Wait a minute. In MMA rules, I can't gouge you in the eyes. I can't bite you. I can't punch you in the nuts.
No, but if I can take you down, I can hold you down and bite you and gouge you in the eyes and all that kind of stuff. I mean, like the thing is, if that's a fight, boxing's like this much of it. You know what I mean? So that's if it becomes a fight, you're out of your depth within 30 seconds.
I am, and that's why you guys are a mixed martial artist. You guys are what's that saying? A jack of all trades, a master of none. That's you guys.
That's not what. Okay, I've seen. Sergio,
bring it on, baby.
The point is Sergio is a world championship
give me low
level
kicks,
boxer.
brother. Give me low kicks, and you won't
Sergio
be able to stand up.
You kick me, I'm done. You kick me, you choke me, you get my arm.
Sergio is a world championship level boxer. He is the least athletic person I think I know. I've seen him play basketball. I've seen him do other things. It is remarkable how non-transferable his boxing talent is into other sports. I'm going to side with Fury by stoppage in the second half of this fight. I do think Fury's going to put on a bit of a show early on. You're going to see a lot of jabs and less power punches from him. I think he's going to try to make Ngannou miss, wildly during this fight and have a little bit of fun with that. There's a risk to that because all it takes is one shot for Ngannou to change the course of that fight. But I think Fury eventually bites down, gets serious in the second half, and stops Francis Ngannou either by KO or TKO at that point. All right, so enjoy the fights out there, everybody. Will Tyson Fury once again carry on the tradition of boxers against MMA fighters, or can Francis Ngannou pull off one of the biggest upsets we have seen in combat sports history? We'll find out on Saturday night.